Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
You've read the books. You've learned the rules. You've played the games. And so is your mom. Just making sure you're paying attention. Now, it's time for something completely off base. From the same guys who haven't done anything exciting yet are the Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Potato. Listen in as they talk about all things related to pen and paper games, challenge rules, and go off script. This is the high fantasy commentary you didn't ask for, but your mom did. This is the Epic Table Audio Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Epic Table Games Audio Show with your Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Potato. What is going on, Potato?
Not much, man. Just chilling and killing.
Yeah? Like the what's that popular, or it was popular probably back when you were still in diapers. Chilling like a villain.
Yeah, chilling like a villain, man.
Named Bob Dylan. Oh, man. You know what? We're not that gonna... Never mind. Doesn't matter. Let's just jump into it.
Let's get in.
Yeah, you woke me up incredibly early to do this, so I want to make sure it's good. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about today, and I've been seeing it a lot, is people who talk about not wanting cheaters at their table. People who don't necessarily stick true to their character sheets. People who don't like putting character sheets in D&D Beyond for the DM to, keep an eye on it. Those individuals who also seem to fudge dice a lot. And I want to say that we've touched on it before. And we talked about how I think that initially the individuals who are cheating by curating extra spell slots or not keeping a hardcore look at their item slots or their magic slots or fudging dice, first and foremost, I think it comes from a place of not wanting to essentially feel like they're losing at D&D or other tabletop dice-based games.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of psychological factors into it.
Yeah, there is. And especially for new players who want to feel really good right off the bat, So
yeah.
I always tell everybody, let them cheat. I know it sucks. It's weird, and it doesn't feel fair to all the other players, but eventually the cheating subsides,
Right.
They have to essentially feel comfortable enough in the game where it's developed to them where they don't have to cheat. And
yeah.
I myself, I'm not a huge overlord. I'm not a micromanager. I'll let them cheat and fudge. And a lot of people say if you start, or if you let them start, they're just going to continue. But that's not the case that I found in most of the people I play with.
It gets old to them.
Yeah, and, especially when other players at the table kind of catch on and know what's going on, there are essentially enough social pressure to get them to change course because nobody wants to play with a cheater.
Right.
But again, even if that presence of force isn't there, people still tend to eventually stop simply because they realize that they don't need to. Like, this is not a us versus them kind of game. It's not an individual game. It's a cooperative role-playing game.
Exactly. And my initial stance was, if I was to catch someone fudging or cheating as a DM, I would make sure to talk to him about it, like be behind the table, so no one else really knows what's going on. But really,
Mhm.
when you were explaining it does make sense that let them do what they want to do. It's not really harming anything, and eventually they will stop doing it. My
Right.
only problem is when the other players catch on because people are socially savage and
Right.
anything could happen. Friendships could straight up be ruined just because they find out that their best friend's a cheater. And I don't
Right.
want that kind of drama to happen. As long as no drama happens and we're having fun, I'll let you do what you want to do.
Right. And you know that I'm on that same stance. And in a situation where some of the other players are upset, I'm like, well, fudge your dice too. Not a huge deal. I'm not like the game itself. Yes, it's a rules based game, but the fun doesn't come from all of the rules. The fun comes from while you're playing the game. Excuse me.
Yeah,
And
because here's the fun part. Even on the books, it will say, "There's any rules you don't like, throw it out the window."
yeah, so if that means sticking true to your numbers, right? But I mean, honestly, and the reason that part of this bothers me so much is because lately I've been seeing a lot of DMs talk about how these individuals who are cheating are getting kicked from tables and they're not developing skills enough to get out of that um, essential initial slump. You know,
Oh,
they're
that's
not.
terrible. Don't stunt
Yeah,
their progression.
yeah. And a lot of times you'll hear about how it's the experienced players who are fudging dice rolls. So maybe they've been doing it forever, and maybe that's just the kind of player they are. Um, but there are ways to work with that. And again, like I said, I've never had a case where somebody starts off with fudging their dice and continues on with the entire campaign.
Right.
Um, I'm sure everybody does it every now and then. People talk about DMs doing it. Um,
Yeah,
it's
when I
just so
first
they
started playing, I was told that the DMs are the only ones allowed to cheat, and that's purely not true.
right. And this falls into a category all of its own because um so many DMs, because a lot of things moved online during the pandemic, they want character sheets uploaded so they can see them and keep track of everybody's character sheets. And I've
What's
watched
with that
some.
hang up, by the way?
I
Why do you need their sheets?
I don't know. And in fact, I know that a lot of people like to make sure that again, people aren't cheating. They're keeping track of spell slots, etc. And I don't micromanage that far. I like to make sure your character sheet looks right. Um, show me what it looks like initially, so nothing looks absolutely wrong. I do that with all players, especially newer players.
Yeah.
Um, but it's generally a cursory glance. I don't go through with a fine tooth comb. Um, I know what I'm looking for, so I look for the things to make sure certain math is correct, and we start going at it. Um, why these individuals need to micromanage their character sheets makes it feel like, coupled with their opinions on cheating, it feels like it's a us versus them style game. It
I don't
feels
like
like
that.
neither do I, because it also feels like it's a situation where players aren't playing their game, they're playing the DM's game. And I strongly believe that any sort of role playing game is the player's game in the DM's setting.
Yes.
So, as a cooperative game, I need to play my character, other people need to play their character, and in that entire party, somebody who doesn't feel adequate enough, who kind of fudges their dice or doesn't keep exact count of spell slots or their gold finances, etc., um, eventually turn around into the social setting. And the DM is helping to tell their story. I don't understand why they need to micromanage or why they need to fight so hard on this.
Right. It honestly feels like when the DM wants the player's character sheets, you're taking away their agency. I don't like as a player being told, "All right, he's gonna hit you." Rolls. Oh yeah, that'll hit. Like no,
Right.
tell me the number. That way, I feel like I'm engaged in the battle. Otherwise, you're just playing by yourself at this point. I'll go to the bathroom.
Right. And like, oh, it's not playing by yourself because you roll your character's attack. Well, unfortunately, sir, you just rolled and, you know, for their attack and knew it was automatically going to hit. I like that to happen naturally in the battle, not before it starts. I like to just fucking roll my attack for me.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's
Yeah.
crazy, man. And
Well,
and when it comes to a fudger, I think another great thing that helps them get out of fudging is usually they do this because they don't want to lose, right?
yeah.
Now, when they witness a moment when a fellow player misses a roll or a save and something happens to them, especially if the DM articulates it in such a good cinematic way, he's going to be like, "Oh, I want that moment for my character now. I'll
Right.
play a bit more legit because the story is more important than me winning."
Right. And I think that naturally comes to most individual fudging accounts naturally through multiple sessions. And it doesn't happen by session 3, you know? Um by session 3, you're still essentially figuring out your character, who you are in the game and what you're trying to do.
Right, exactly.
So I know this is such a heavy topic to start off our episode with, but honestly, I think it's one of those instruments where as an experienced DM, I can say, guys, when you're looking at fudging dice, you're looking at somebody who's cheating only in the sense that they're cheating and you don't want that at your table. But there's a reason that they're cheating, and you have to let them explore why and then find a way out of it. Like your job as a DM is to help cultivate that player, not to control that player.
Right. You're supposed to support, not control. You're supposed to uh, help him improve, not
Yep.
isolate him
I
or her.
completely agree with that. Right. And I completely agree with that. And it's one of those situations where, as I was reading through all of those horror stories, I finally unsubscribed to that subreddit, by the way.
Yeah, you told me
Where
that
I,
last week, I think.
yeah. And I've been sticking to a little bit closer to just some of the subreddits that make sense to me. Not like I'm looking for things that specifically fit what I think, just things that don't drive me so up the wall. And some of those horror stories were getting really bad, and it made me feel like um, what they're calling woke culture right now is
Oh man.
really infecting the game. And I don't mean what's coming out from Wizards of the Coast or Paizo. I mean, we've all been like, this race, sure, it's generally evil, but some of them aren't. So I understand changing that kind of stuff. It doesn't bother me.
Right, I want to play as this guy this much, so I think it's okay if I play as
Right.
him. It's individual, not as a
Right.
whole.
Right. And I'm looking at other individuals who are running a game or playing a game who are like, you know, I really didn't like this other player's character because he hated all of this race just for whatever reason. He's a racist. Like, that's not necessarily him being a racist. That could be his character. You have to separate character from player.
Yes.
But also, there's a lot of history in some of this thing. Like, dwarves and giants generally don't get along.
Right, right. It's straight up in the lore, but you're gonna tell me it's racist if I'm playing as a dwarf that hates giants? Get out of here, man.
Right.
Especially
And
in that setting, you really can't get away from that prejudiced view because so much history happens between their cultures.
right.
They are
And
enemies.
they are. And it's bigger than that too, because I'm reading about how individuals feel like the orcish race is kind of synonymous with other impoverished people of color races in real life. And I
How?
guess, well, I don't want to travel too deep into that. But on the surface, the way people portray orcs, I can see what some of those individuals are saying, and I can understand wanting to change that culture because really the Gary Gygax generation of the game, it was a social commentary masked as a game in a lot of people's opinions. There were a lot of things that were considered just super wrong with the game. I mean, you remember the idea that it was just a satanic game, right?
Oh yeah, I remember even my mom telling me, "Don't play that game. It's the devil's game."
Right.
Exactly in her voice. It's verbatim.
That's funny. I've heard your mom talk, and she doesn't sound anything like that.
How dare you?
But so I get that there is a history of this game being semi-uninclusive.
Right. And I can understand you wanting to take X race and Y creatures and kind of change them to fit your setting, how you interpret them. But it's another thing if you have to make everybody be inclusive and nice and what's it, be politically correct. Like you can't censor how I want to play and how I want to say things. That's not
Right.
that's not cool. That's again being controlling. That's all that is.
Now, the flip side and the argument to that, okay, because essentially what you're saying is this is what my character would do. And
Right.
people hate that argument. That's a very triggering sentiment argument right there.
Well,
And-
how else do you role play?
Well,
I'm just
here's the
gonna play
thing.
as me with my own views. Who cares about
if-
what I'm playing as?
A lot of people view that if you're playing your character and the defense is it's what my character would do, you're playing a character who's having your fun at the expense of others. And to a degree, I understand that. It's, party cohesion in my mind is super important. But if you're having fun at the expense of the other party members, sure, there's a slight problem. Because you got to have that party cohesion.
Right, but yet again, having in-party drama could be fun as well, as long as everyone knows that it's the character, not the player.
Right.
Now,
And
for story, that can be very entertaining still.
it can be. And like we talked about last episode about my character concept of the fanatic healer, where
Yes.
I told the party, I was like, I have this character concept that I like, and it has to be okay by the party because it's difficult to work with. I brought it up.
Have they made a decision on that?
They haven't said anything. We're supposed to have session 0 tonight, and in like 12 hours, actually.
Oh, have fun,
And-
have fun.
Thanks. I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it.
Why? Because of the game system?
As I've been following along and listening to the DM and some of the conversations, they sound like great people. They sound like they know what they're doing. It sounds like it's a good time. I'm just not sure if the game setting will be how I like things. So, like, I'm way more laid back and chill. Like when somebody says that this game is LGBTQ inclusive, not only do I not mind, I don't think it should have to be stated. I think that all games should be that way, and anybody's preference and orientation, either of themselves or their characters, should be absolutely freely accepted without issue. I have no hangups
Right.
there. So when somebody starts off saying, "Hey, this game is super inclusive, everybody has to have fun, everybody has to get along, and everybody has to do this," I'm a little hesitant, not because those rules are bad or out of place, but because I don't think that those rules need to be obviously stated. But again, it means that this DM has had issues where not stating these rules have really burned them.
Wow. And
So-
for me, if I was in your shoes, I would feel this like arbitrary pressure to basically make sure I say the right thing to not trigger anybody and then get kicked out on the first day. Like I don't
And-
want that to happen to me, so now I gotta think 3 sentences ahead.
It does feel that way, and so I'm a little hesitant, but I'm still going to go. I want to check it out. It seems like a decent group, and it's one of those scenarios where the session 0 is really helpful because as much as I usually don't have any sort of session 0 because I know who I'm playing with, when I'm going in blind to a new group, a session 0 does help. It gives me a feel for everything, and I'm not invested in the game if I know it's not going to work out, or if they know it's not going to work out.
Right. Right.
So
That's the beauty of Assassin Zero. People don't utilize it enough, I don't think.
right, and I remember us talking about the trigger warning X card or the red card or whatever. Do you remember that episode?
Yes.
I like the system. I do. I think it's great. We don't need it. I don't need it. I'm too blasé to really think, man, this makes me feel uncomfortable. Like,
But maybe this group you're going into might like it, might need it.
right. And it's generally when we keep throwing that kind of thing around, I have a hard time playing. So I don't know what this group is like. I look forward to figuring it out, finding out, and seeing what I can do with them. But yeah, I've just how the initial conversations have rolled. I have a few small hesitations.
You know, bring the inclusion factor and how it stayed in the very beginning reminds me of a bad story. I don't really remember the specifics, but to my memory, this guy posted on one of those DM sites saying that he wants a all-female cast for playing on Twitch and whatnot, and he's going to have no triggering hang-ups, no offenses. You just come in, you play, have fun. You shouldn't be pressured or feel uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form. You know, let's try and make this a good thing. So 3 female players got on, they made their characters and whatnot. And straight up, in the first session, you go to a tavern, and some guys are making crude comments to them. And one of them is like, well, I'm not going to stand for this. Throws like a pie at them or splashes a drink at them, that sort of thing. And triggers an encounter where the DM took all their agency away, no rolls or anything was made, and the guys overpowered them, pinned them down, and was talking about either we're going to do this to you or you leave your clothes and then you walk away bare naked. Everyone was super pissed. Like, what are you doing? You straight up said this in the beginning, like your ad, and this is your first session. It triggered them so bad. Even one of them actually had a rape situation happen to her, so she was very triggered. And the guy went quiet. He backed out of the Twitch channel. Then he had his wife or girlfriend or something do all the talking for him on chat, trying to defend him the entire time.
Wow,
that's so bad.
That is bad, and I mean, he was wrong to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. His support, his defender, I guess I'll call her. She kept saying that, oh, this was written in the story. The module, I can't remember the name of the module, but the module was written by Wizards of the Coast, and none of their modules have anything like that in there. So that's wrong, and you're lying.
Right. Now, I wouldn't be surprised.
You add that in.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was old school TSR. To be honest, old school TSR has rules for rape.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and again, I mean that's from old school Gary Gygax generation era.
Like, I can understand the bare bones of this encounter being like snob dudes. One of them maybe is like a prince or something, or like some head honcho, and
even just a misogynistic pig.
Yeah, I can see the guidelines of that, but the way he particularly took it made it wrong, in my opinion.
I completely agree. You don't tell somebody that we're not going to have this kind of stuff in the game and then turn around and have that kind of stuff in the game. That's absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, not even that. If you know your party's hangups, you stay away from those hangups because your party needs to have fun.
Yes, and that's the basis of your safe space game. And
exactly.
I don't mind doing it. I don't mind doing it for my players. I don't mind when DMs do it for their players. When I get really concerned is when, if you have a large party of, let's say, 6 people have 6 different hang-ups, you're taking with 6 different things out of the game. And it makes it feel difficult for me, not as a DM, but as a player. And as a player, because I don't have weird hang-ups, kinks, or fetishes, etc., even I don't mind playing through situations that were traumatizing to me when I was younger. Like, it just doesn't bother me. As a player, though, when we have to constantly stop and work around everybody's issues, it feels super bogged down and it takes away from the game. And I don't like feeling as though I'm a semi-small therapist in any situation. So working through a lot of these individual hang-ups, it takes time, and I just don't generally care to know everybody's hang-ups, you know? Seems pretty personal to me.
Yeah, honestly, I feel, especially in like a party that you kind of know on hand how they are outside of the table, it's much easier to make something work.
Yeah.
But if something happens and you don't know it and someone gets triggered, if they don't say anything about it, then it shouldn't be your fault by any means.
I agree with that. I mean, I
If
think it's
they
everybody's
if they cut the
responsibility.
game mid sentence and be like, "Hey, you know what? I don't like what you just did there," then yeah, it's going to stop the game. It's going to bog it down. It's going to work it through. But if it keeps on happening, then there's a different issue there, and I don't want to talk
Right.
about that issue.
Right. Right. All right. So let's kind of move on a little bit. Um, I like doing. You had a monster spotlight last week or a character spotlight, and I liked having it kind of in the middle of the episode versus the end.
Oh, okay.
So do you have one ready today?
I do. And actually, this monster spotlight, you guys are lucky, is going to be a twofer.
Okay. How are we lucky? What's the twofer?
The twofer is, well, kind of inspiration from our character spotlight is going to be a cockatrice and a basilisk.
Nice. Nice. All right. I'm gonna turn off my microphone so you can have this real quick. I'll be right back, and you keep filling us in. All right.
All right, will do. So the reason why I brought up the cockatrice and the basilisk is because of our last character spotlight, and doing a little bit of research. It's pretty cool, unique when you think about the real life mythology with it, because honestly, they're the same creature. If you really break it down to the exact origins, it's just a difference of a frog incubating a chicken's egg or a snake warming up the chicken's egg as if it was the chicken's mother. If that makes any sense. It's very interesting. So the cockatrice is the frog version essentially. Imagine your chicken bodied dragon that can petrify things and has this aura of destruction, breaking down walls whenever it walks nearby and stuff like that. It's very impressive in itself. But yeah, the cockatrice is one of those unsung monsters in video games and books and movies. Even you don't really see the cockatrice. I think it's partly because of its name, or it could be because of its design. But as a whole, these creatures are very powerful and can be very intimidating. And the basilisk truly has basically the same features and the same abilities, just that it's more snake-like in appearance. In fact, there's two different versions of basilisk. I mean, these two different versions of basilisk is just a very large snake that can petrify you with its gaze, all the way to a squat, multi-legged lizard with a snake-esque head. They are known as the king of snakes, so I think a basilisk being more of a snake to me makes a bit more sense. Not a six-legged or eight-legged in Pathfinder at least. An eight-legged lizard to me doesn't sound anywhere close to a king snake, but that's just how it is. In mechanics terms, we'll start off with the D&D Beyond version of the cockatrice and the basilisk, and then we'll move on to the Pathfinder versions.
Nice. All right. So this can be found in both versions. This exact same monster.
Yes.
Good deal. I like that.
Yes, and I remember correctly, there's a couple variants, but there's more variants of the basilisk as well, which I think is
Hmm.
kind of interesting. So
Now,
the yeah, what was that?
most people are familiar with Basilisk from Harry Potter, right? So we're talking the
Yes.
large snake.
Yeah, there's actually two different versions. There,
Okay.
there's there's the snake version, and then there's this like squat-legged, like eight-leg lizard version, and that's the version that's in our tabletop games, which is very odd.
Really?
In real life mythology, it's usually the large snake version, but for
Okay.
D&D and for Pathfinder, it's this eight-legged lizard dude. It's so
Weird.
interesting.
Yeah, it sounds that way.
So yeah, with the cockatrice in D&D Beyond, it is a very small, unaligned monstrosity with a challenge of only half. So it sounds very, weak of a monster.
Yeah.
Only 27 hit points and stuff like that. At least it has dark vision. It can
So,
bite and it can petrify you. But the D&D
okay.
version of
Now,
cockatrice is very poor, if you ask me.
that petrify, that is a permanent effect, though, isn't it? That's a pretty much save or die.
See, do. Nope, petrified for 24 hours.
Really? Okay. Okay. So, honestly, when you're throwing this character at your party, because it's a CR half, you said, correct?
Yep.
You're probably throwing it at lower level parties, so making their saves are probably going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, I can see it being like a first session boss encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Like first session, you go to a tavern. Hey, you guys want to go on a quest? Go hunt the cockatrice. Here it is. The description for D&D Beyond is so lackluster. It's the cockatrice looks like a hideous hybrid of lizard, bird, and bat. It is infamous for its ability to turn flesh to stone. That's it.
Okay. So really, when we're looking at this lower level CR monster and it throwing in the description of how it turns individuals to stone, it sounds like it plagues townfolk quite a bit. It's it's a great hook to get some players adventuring or to figure out what's going on, why we're losing town people and getting statues. You know?
Yeah, I do think overall it's a nice way to start a game. It can be very fun to get the new players' boots wet, essentially.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Now, the Pathfinder version of Cockatrice is a little different. Right off the bat, it's a CR3,
Okay, so still lower level, but more challenging.
a little bit more challenging. This hideous avian creature has the body of a emaciated rooster, the wings of a bat, and a long, scaly tail.
Okay.
And it's interesting as well. I've noticed that with the two systems, the petrification quality comes from a bite attack. Whereas in the lore, in real life lore, it's their eyes, their gaze that turns people to stone. Or even one story, just being near them turns them to stone. So it's
All
pretty
right.
interesting
Now,
how they kind of put this into a bite attack.
I'll tell you, if you had an aura of petrification, the game would change incredibly.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
a gaze attack is common. We see that quite a bit in a lot of different monsters as well. So I don't understand why they would push it to be a bite attack unless they did that specifically to make it more challenging for the party to lose. You know,
Yeah,
um,
maybe it was a balancing choice.
it feels like it may have been. I mean, balancing the games is incredibly difficult, especially once you get so large, um, or you have so much content. So yeah, it might be. Thinking about it as a bite attack is it's odd. That's like if you were to go against a gorgon, a Medusa. Um, imagine she had to bite you in order to petrify you first. That'd be weird.
That would be weird. That would be weird. But hey, I like their version of petrification.
Okay.
For Pathfinder's petrification quality, each of the bite attacks will cause a fortitude save.
Okay.
And on a failed save, they'll take dexterity damage as the flesh and the bones stiffen and harden. And once the dexterity reaches 0, then you immediately and completely turn into stone.
And is that a forever thing?
See, da da da, ba ba da ba. See, da da da. So, when you're petrified in this manner, you can make a new fortitude save to try to recover from the petrification. And when you recover, you only reach to 1 dexterity. Therefore, you'll be able to kind of, move around some more and get some healing.
Okay.
But if you fail 3 times in a row, yep, it becomes permanent.
Nice. So
I like
that's
that.
pretty hardcore for a CR3 monster.
I
It
like
takes
the
time.
fact that it's a slow petrification and you need to really climb to save out of it. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Like a
agree with
bad
that. I like it a
disease.
lot. Yeah, I dig that. That's a good monster. It's a good entry level monster that has some real weight behind it.
It does. I think it'd be very fun for a beginning campaign. I love their description as well in the Pathfinder version of the cockatrice. Stupid, vicious, and repulsive. Cockatrices are avoided by other creatures due to their magical ability to turn flesh to stone. Legends say that the first cockatrice emerged from an egg laid by a cockatiel and incubated by a toad. Whether or not the story is true, today's cockatrices breed true and terrifying in filthy dens, haphazardly excavated by as many as a dozen of the squawking creatures.
Wow.
Males greatly outnumber females in these flocks and are distinguished only by their wattles and combs. The typical cockatrice stands just over 2 feet high and weighs 5 pounds.
Wow.
Their diet consists primarily of seeds and petrified insects. I like that. Petrified insects. That's funny.
Yeah.
Fiercely they fiercely defend their territories from anything they deem as a threat, and the wanderings of rogue males seeking new spots to build dens sometimes bring them to unintentional contact with humans with devastating results.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like the fact that they included like a den mechanic and a great way to shoo in a cockatrice kind of causing trouble in a nearby village.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like how immediately as you read the fact that they can sort of live in clutches, you now have a larger scale issue that can be way more dangerous because you have way more birds to save against.
Ooh, yeah. What about like an overpopulation event? That'd be
That'd be neat.
brutal.
Yeah, it'd be a good fun story campaign idea too.
Yeah, imagine a CR3 creature multiplied by 20. Can you really handle that when you're level 5?
Heck no, you'd be hard pressed to handle 1 or 2 while you're level 5.
Oh man, that'd be brutal.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
Well, now let's highlight the Basilisk. We're starting off with the D&D Beyond version. It's a medium monstrosity with a CR of 3. So it's a bit tougher than the Cockatrice version.
Yep.
The Basilisk has the petrifying gaze, though, like a Medusa. That's interesting.
Now,
30 feet and da-da-da-da.
I think that petrifying gaze really comes from the fact that in most lore, it being a snake, it had the petrifying gaze before the bite.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, the basilisk was usually always a snake, and it would turn you to stone.
Yeah.
And the cockatrice was a different creature, but it was all basically the same origin. It was just a difference of a toad and a snake.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting.
That's why you wanted to highlight both of these, right?
Yes, because they're so similar, and I was doing my research for my character idea because I thought him being a frog dude, putting on a chicken costume, essentially being a luchador, made a lot of sense.
That's funny.
Um,
That's hilarious.
But yeah, so if you are petrified by the basilisk's petrifying gaze, the only way you can be freed is with a greater restoration spell or other similar magics.
And this is D&D, right?
Yes. So that's
So
interesting. You're not petrified for only 24 hours. It's basically permanent until you find a solution.
right. And I've played a game where one of our characters was petrified, and we just got to carry him around until we got to a town that could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can get them off the ground, and yeah, that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, it was really the only thing to do.
Oh, here's an interesting little tidbit here. A creature that isn't surprised can avert its eyes to avoid the saving throw at the start of its turn. If it does so, it can't see the basilisk until the start of its next turn, when it can avert its eyes again. That's cool.
So
It gives you a way out from being petrified.
sure, but if you're using your turn to avert your eyes, you can't attack.
Yeah, because it is the beginning of the turn, so I really can't imagine, oh, I'm going to look away and then try to cast a spell. If anything, you can
Right.
say roll total concealment. Maybe you miss, maybe you hit. Kind of shooting
Right.
blindly.
That's a decent idea. That way it's not completely overpowered.
Right. That's definitely interesting. I don't think any other creature like a Medusa, I don't think any of them has that little tidbit information. Like you could spend a turn to not look. I feel that'd be the
Uh,
number one thing you try to do because of the Clash of the Titans movie.
that it's possible. It's possible. Now that we mentioned the Medusa here. Excuse me. It has a petrifying gaze. Um, she slowly turns them to stone in D&D.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, and
Interesting.
same. It's very similar to the cockatrice, where it's slow and the petrification only happens until the saving throws. Oh, hold on. Here we go. Fails, it begins to turn to stone. It's restrained. Restrained creature must repeat the saving throw at the end of its next turn. So you have two choices. You have two chances here, and then you are petrified until greater restoration.
Nice.
And the same thing. If you're not surprised, you can avert your eyes.
Maybe that's just a D&D aspect. I feel maybe with Pathfinder, they're like, you could probably just do it. We're not going to tell you that you can do it, though. Who knows? I like that. I like that that's part of the creature's stat block, so you have that on hand, though. That's really
Yeah.
nice.
Absolutely. I guess
A
that's kind of like a bonus.
basilisk is
to the
a
bonus.
what?
I said that's kind of a bonus to the bonus. We didn't mean to look into the
Yeah.
Medusa, the Gorgon.
That's a really cool thing to think about too. The different ways that petrification can occur in a game. That's really neat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, with D&D Beyond's description, though, it's basically two sentences, and I don't know why they don't really give them much more. How are you gonna implement them good enough if you don't really know them enough?
I
A
I think
basilisk, huh?
I think in some of these cases, sorry, I think in some of these cases, the history or lore behind some of it is so well known that you can kind of fill it in. Not to mention, I think most people just look at monsters and say, "Hey, I like the way this one looks."
Yeah, I feel that's usually how it is. I just throw them in and I'll make sense of it. Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. All right.
that's obviously true. A basilisk is a multi-legged reptilian horror whose deadly gaze transforms victims to porous stone. With its strong jaws, the creature consumes the stone, which returns to organic form in its gullet.
Nice.
Not gonna lie,
Nice. So,
that's actually a lot cooler than the cockatrice's description.
yeah. And again, I mean, it makes it seem more dangerous. Like it's easier and quicker to be petrified, and then once you're petrified, you could definitely be eaten.
Yeah.
So I dig that.
Now on to the Pathfinder basilisk. It's a CR5, so the toughest one out of the bunch so far.
Yep.
Also has variants. You got your Crimson Basilisk. You got a Slime Infected Basilisk, which that sounds interesting. This squat reptilian monster has 8 legs, bony spurs jutting from its back, and eyes that glow with a pale green fire.
Nice.
It has blind fight, it has iron will. Wow. It can stealth. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Pathfinder version. I mean, higher CR, a little bit more difficult. Both good things, but it feels way more mythological. I'll have to say. Um, Again, I mean, the only real thing I can equate it to is what I'm familiar with, and that's the snake basilisk. They are generally stealthy. They are hard to see. They are tough. They are hardy,
Yeah.
and given it 8 legs, I mean, I'd have to look into why we transitioned into snake to 8-legged snake.
Yeah, it's weird because Basilisk was always called the king of snakes. How are they the
Right,
king of snakes if they got legs? It doesn't even
right,
look like a snake. It looks like a lizard. Doesn't really
like
have like it's weird.
the king of skinks.
Uh, oh,
Oh man,
dude, the gaze effect for the Pathfinder Basilisk is pretty unique. So
okay,
you turn to stone permanently as like the flesh to stone spell, range of
yep,
30 feet, blah 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 blah. A creature petrified in this matter that is then coated but not splashed with fresh basilisk blood taken from a basilisk no more than 1 hour after it's dead is instantly restored to flesh. A single basilisk contains enough blood to coat a 1d3 medium creatures in this manner. So you're basically frozen to stone permanently, and the only way to save them is with basilisk blood.
that has been killed within an hour. So it's specifically designed where, hey, if you forget to do this,
Yeah,
the
that is
solution is right
brutal.
there, and you better know it.
That'd be something you can totally punish a player for not rolling a knowledge check. That is
Yeah,
brutal.
yeah, absolutely agree to that.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
So they
Yeah.
can also be organized in a colony of 3 to 6 basilisks.
Now, three CR5s is already a semi difficult encounter for most mid level campaigns.
Yeah.
Imagine 6 would be way more difficult.
Jeez, man,
But
that'd be nuts.
yeah, yeah, and then again, I mean, with the parties and the groups that we play with, I mean, melee characters and blasters would take them out within the first few rounds anyway.
Yeah, I think with our particular party, it won't be that bad of an encounter.
Yep.
The description in the Pathfinder as well. I love that they kind of called out on this. So the basilisk, often called the king of serpents, is in fact not a serpent at all, but rather an 8-legged reptile with a nasty disposition and the ability to turn creatures to stone with its gaze.
Oh, that's lame.
Oh,
But I mean, I
folklore
like that they
holds
call it
that
out.
much. Yeah, they call it out. Folklore holds that much like the cockatrice, the first basilisks hatch from eggs laid by snakes and incubated by roosters. Oh, they kind of flip that around. It's a snake egg incubated by a rooster.
That's fair.
That's interesting.
Does
With
that
a
mean it's eight?
little, huh?
Does that mean it's 8 legs or chicken legs?
Well, I mean, in the visuals, no. That would be a bit creepier if it was.
Oh yeah.
That'd be brutal. You wouldn't want to fight that thing. Yeah, that's really cool. There's a lot going on here. It can burrow. It has layers and caves. Let's see. Folklore holds that much like cockatrice, blah blah blah. But little in the basilisk physiology lends any credence to this claim. So that's pretty interesting. It's just like the cockatrice's backstory is just folklore. There's no real backing. They just know that they run amok now. That's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Um, they like to live in forests and deserts, and they like to hide in areas that match or reflect their surroundings. So they can alter their scales, basically camouflage themselves, but not giving them a camouflage mechanic. That's pretty cool. That works well with a basilisk being a ambush predator, essentially. That's pretty neat. Let's see. Da-da-da. Ooh, their dens. Their dens are pretty unique. They are marked by statues of people and animals in lifelike poses, petrified remains of those unfortunate enough to stumble across the basilisk. So that's pretty cool, actually. A lot better than the cockatrice. That basilisk is like, hey, this is my area. I marked it. This is my guard post, essentially. This is Barry. He came over here a week ago. Don't come back here. You see him. This is where I am. I'll get you too. And you'd be my little doorway. That's pretty neat. Whoa, they can grow up to 13 feet long. My goodness. 300 pounds. Oh yeah, the basilisk in the Pathfinder version, I feel, is the top dog in comparison to all these other monsters. It's pretty cool. A lot better than the cockatrice. A lot better than the D&D versions by far. Ooh, there's also an abyssal basilisk. That's interesting. I love to hear about that. That'd be a crazy encounter. And I did not want to add this into the spotlight because we're trying to do. I'm trying to be nice and do a twofer. But there's also
Yeah.
the Dracolisk. The Dracolisk is also a comparative creature to the game, but we
No,
don't need to talk about that. I feel that is a different story entirely.
man, you got me excited about that one.
You want to go with it? Make
No,
it a
no,
threefer?
we're. I mean, we already kind of threw in a bonus there with the Medusa dip.
Oh, that's
Um,
true.
I think with where we're at, you had a few more things we wanted to talk about, and we're actually pushing pretty close to the end of our episode.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you want to go a bit long on this one to kind of make up for last episode?
Uh, we can push it. I have maybe about 15 more minutes available at most.
Well, all right. Let's go off with one last thing. I think this kind of blends well with our first topic.
Okay,
So I'd like to
circling back.
ask you. You are a bit more of the veteran in these parts. What are all the ways that campaign lends progression for players? You got like XP, you got milestone. What are the other ways that's implemented?
Um, so I think XP is one of the most common, and we're seeing a resurgence in milestone. But I I've also seen things kind of like whenever the DM decides, which similar to milestone, but it's kind of at the DM's discretion. Other than that, I haven't seen a whole lot of things that are super deviant from those two opportunities or options.
There's one thing that I've seen at least a couple years ago, but I think that changed when everyone got online and it was easier to play. But there's this thing that this one guy at least did, I'll tell you this much, because their party gets together like once a month, if
Uh
that.
huh.
So instead of trying to be arduous and be like, well, you haven't leveled up yet, guys, see you next month, he will have them level up quicker depending on how much time was spent away from the game to help get them to keep wanting to play. So
Okay.
2 months, you level up. And next month, you know what? I feel like you guys deserve it. You get another level up. 2 months later,
That's
you get another level up.
that's interesting. That's not bad. I have played one game where we had gained a level every 3 sessions.
Yeah, something like that. That's not really milestone. It's more like session increment leveling.
Yeah,
I do like that, and that definitely depends on how often you play and your party and
hmm
whatnot. I think that's a very neat way. The reason
I'd say
why I
so.
bring this up is because I think I figured out a nice hybrid. And I think you were telling me about this before we started that you were kind of doing the same thing as well. But what I want to do whenever I get back to running with my friends, I want to do XP, but also milestone, and not let them know about it.
hmm
So essentially, it's you get enough XP from doing things, but really haven't gone far enough in the story where I already marked where I wanted you guys to level up. So you guys get a
Right.
level up for XP. That's cool. But if it gets synced up properly, you get XP and the milestone. Boom, you guys level up twice. Having moments like that, I feel, will make the players very excited and very engaged right away. Kind of like in a video game when you did so much, or you've done a very high level quest, and you go blue ding, you get so
Right.
excited for that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I like that idea. It's just you have to think ahead enough, especially if you're homebrewing a campaign. You have to think ahead enough where you want the milestones, so then it feels genuine and not
Hmm.
random.
Right.
And especially if they don't know, they just get excited for it. If they're waiting for it, they're like, "Oh, what's my XP at?" Or, "Oh, we did this. Is that not a milestone?" Then it's gonna sully and muddy up what I'm trying to do.
Right. And that's why I kind of blended the two of them together. I track XP myself and I let the players know when they level up. And
Yes.
I do that because A, if they're just farming for XP, they generally become murder hobos. And if they know they're milestone leveling, they look for everything to be a milestone.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I don't want. I don't want them to meta crunch the campaign. It's supposed to be a story. Have fun doing
Mhm.
what you are going to do as your characters and go through the story path, not, oh, what's the quickest way to level up?
Right.
So,
Right. I agree with that. And I think it's a fun blend. I think each individual table has their own preferred method, and that's obviously okay. But um, I found that after so much time doing this, it's just everybody starts packing up at sort of different times, so it's just easier for me to keep track of everybody's XP.
yeah. Yeah. I remember the last couple of our sessions, I was like, hold on, did we get XP from that? Did he tell us? The last time I written it down was like a month ago.
Yep. Yep.
I just like let it sit there. I'm like, oh, I'll bring it up next time we get together. We'll figure it out. But now that you
Yeah.
told me that you're doing it yourself, at least that's a burden off my shoulders, and sadly a burden on yours.
It's not a problem. I have to figure out it anyway.
But
So
yeah, that's pretty cool.
I
So
like
if
it.
you're playing a game and you are like, you know what, the XP drag is a bit hard to keep track of, or you know what, this monster leveling isn't really conducive to our play style, just know there's different ways you can progress with your players. Just
Hmm.
have fun with it, man. Play around, experiment. Maybe
Oh
do
yeah.
a combination of all three: session increment, milestone, and XP. That'd be wild.
I would be confusing to say
It
the
would
least.
be.
So
You know what?
all
How
right,
about
guys,
this? You,
we're
you
gonna.
start the game, you roll a dice. I'm like, oh, nope. The D6 says 6. You guys level up 6 times today.
Oh Jesus Christ! No, no.
Instead of playing, let's level up our characters for a few hours.
Oh my God, no. No. Leveling up that many times is just as bad as creating a character before your first session.
Remember that one time that we convinced our DM to level us up to 27 when we're like
Yes,
level like 10 before or something?
I think we went from 12 to 27. Yeah,
That was brutal, man. My mind was
yeah.
so melded trying to figure that out.
It was. It was such a fun concept, and then one of our players didn't like it because it was too overpowered, and he didn't like
That
that game style.
was godlyhood levels right there, man.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when you start to scale to that high level, you need to scale the monsters that high level as well.
Yeah,
It doesn't
you
matter.
really need to.
It doesn't matter how strong you are. If things are scaling the same, then 1 to 10 is the same as 10 to 100.
Yeah.
It's this. I don't know. I have issues with
It's
that anyway, but
It's the
it's a
same with
different story.
video games. If it's auto leveling, then you never feel like you're getting stronger. But if it's not
Hmm.
leveled properly, then it feels like it's a cakewalk.
Right, but then on the flash side, the reverse side, the flip side, told you about how I was playing Dragon Ball Z's Kakarot,
Yeah.
and when you start off the game, your damage is pretty minimal, but now at like level 100 or higher, my damage is so massive, but all my opponent's life points are so massive, it still scales the same. It doesn't matter. I could be the same level 1 character as the
Yeah.
level 100 character, and my damage scale is the same.
Yeah, that kind of scaling to me kind of takes you out of the game. It doesn't feel like you're actually progressing. You don't feel strong. You don't feel like you deserve all those numbers.
Right. And you're watching it and you're like, damn, yeah, I don't think that's legit. And you're right, it's a bummer, but it's not bad. It's just when you realize it can be a bummer.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Tough
all right,
pill to swallow.
It is, and for forcing me to do this at so early in the morning, I think we did pretty well. I'm not usually up this early on the weekends.
I'm up this early regardless.
Oh, dude, I'm usually right now is when I'm usually waking up. It's funny because we give no context of time because we don't know when our listeners are listening.
No, that's true.
If they're
Everybody,
like,
if you're listening to this, we're doing this in 4:00 in the morning.
That's not true, but it felt like it. Anyhow, guys, thanks for tuning in. There were a few times where we went dark, and Potato handled it very, very beautifully. I had some tummy issues, and it was not okay. Changed my diet.
Well, that'll do it to you,
dude.
Torturing your body, bro.
Well, I've been giving up soda slowly, and now I'm to a point where I don't think my body really appreciates any soda.
Oh, well, I guess that's a good thing for your liver or kidney.
Kidney.
Yeah, kidney.
Yeah. Remember, my kidneys are going to look great. Your kidneys are going to look like they have teeth inside of them.
That's right. It's going to be like the Langoliers.
I remember that movie, but I don't remember teeth inside the kidneys.
Well, they're like balls with teeth, and that's the kidney.
Okay. Vicious ass Pac-Man. All right, guys. Check us out online at facebook.com/epictablegames. You can find us online at epictablegames.com as well. But I just redid the site, and I've taken it offline to finish it up. So hopefully that'll be done up by the end of the month. So give us some time
trim and polish.
Dude, it looks really nice. I showed it to you last night, and it's pretty hot.
Oh yeah. I had a look at that website one-handed. If you know what I mean.
That's
the
only because
the
it was
episode.
On your phone. Yeah. Catch you guys later.
Audio show with the paladins of the podcast, Rob and Potato. Until next time, stay in touch on Facebook at Epic Table Games and online at epictablegames.com. Yeah.